Hi guys, I hope you are doing well. Here, if I want to give you a brief explanation about the history of Rhino, I should say that firstly, this software has been developed by McNeil Brothers in Seattle, United States in 1993, and they claim that this software is capable of design, model, present, analyze and realize, and so on. However, some of these capabilities are proper to the industrial design and also the jewelry design. Rhino has got many plugins. Following that, if you search for Food for Rhino, as you can see, then you can get access to the plugins of this software. Then you can get access to tons of plugins there. Why Food for Rhino? As you know, Rhino is abbreviated from rhinoceros, which is an animal as you are concerned, and the foods and the nutritions refers to the plugins that you install, you download and then install for this software. They are assembled on this software. If I open the website, then you can see some groups and categories for the plugins that you can download them for different kinds of purposes like architectural, energy, jewelry, industrial design, calculations, and so on. And each of them are developed for specific purposes. And in the future, I will tell you some of them which are practical in architectural, and we will teach you. But as you are concerned, these days Rhino is famous among the architectures and has got too many fans. And Rhino is being frequently used in the offices. But here you may come up with a question that what is the differences between Rhino and the other older softwares like 3D Max, SketchUp, and so on, and why Rhino is accepted by the architectures. As you're concerned, today's designs are more modern than the old days, and we are dealing with more complex and organized surfaces. In fact, Rhino is a software that uses NURBS to present curves and surfaces. And this feature has triggered the architectures to support Rhino, while the older ones used meshes to represent curves and surfaces. So we consider Rhino as a NURBS modeling software, while other softwares like 3D Max, AutoCAD, and SketchUp are called mesh modeling. In the continuation, I'm gonna clarify this difference by showing you some slides, and then we will go on. First of all, let me explain the word of NURBS. You've got a definition of NURBS, which it means that non-uniform rational B-spline. NURBS is the acronym of this phrase, which is non-uniform rational B-spline. Practically, what does it mean? Check this out. Here at this image, the middle geometry, as you can see, is a mesh modeling surface, while the right one is the NURBS modeling. And as you can see in this NURBS modeling, we got this smoothness. But let us analyze it. Suppose that we got such a surface. Here, if I want to model this by using 3D Max, which uses mesh, or a SketchUp, and then I want to keep on modeling this geometry or surface, for example to just modify the form of the geometry or the surface or the curve, for example to form something, you will see that if we use mesh in representing the surface, it won't give us a smooth and regular surface. But if we use NURBS, as you can see, this will be the result, and a smooth shape. So if I wanna put it in a nutshell, I should say that a surface which is created by NURBS is a smooth and even surface and more organized surfaces actually. So we are more capable for designing the complex and organized surfaces. So this was a brief explanation about Rhino and the functions and practices which Rhino focuses on. However, we got NURBS modeling in 3D Max too. In Rhino, we are provided with mesh tools as well, as you can see on the screen. All I want to say that the NURBS modeling in 3D Max is not as functional as the Rhino, and mesh tools in Rhino are not dependable and we can't account on them. But let us talk about the software and then learn that how we can work with this software. Usually when we wanna learn how to work with a software, we begin with getting familiar with the interference, actually the interface. So let us start. I have opened a new template file, and here if I save it as like here, then I assign the name like test, and then I'm gonna show this. After saving the file, the size of the file will be shown here, as you can see, and as we move the project forward, the size of the project grows, and you can see the name of the file too. Anyway, here we got the menu and the items at the toolbar, which is common within all of the softwares. That includes the tools and the commands. Here we got the command line, as you can see. Probably you're familiar with AutoCAD, but if you're not, in command line we define our commands, by typing them. For example, if I want to sketch a line, I type line by this way, as you can see. Then if I press enter, then it enables me to sketch a line, as you can see. All in command line you can order, and then it will gives you the related command or tool. And the next part is the dockable window, which is standard, as you can see. I move it and place it here. Let me maximize the size. Here we got standard toolbar. Let me position it at the default place. In a standard toolbar, we normally have 15 tabs, as you can see: select, display, view, layout, visibility. But just in case if we didn't have access to one of these tabs, how do we can add them to the toolbar? For example, during the session we may want to open the select tab, but you can't find select tab in your device. So for getting access to the select tab, I right click on an empty space, and here in show or hide tabs we can control the displayments of each of these tabs. Then we can choose or customize our Rhino toolbars. For example, if I want to remove select from the toolbar or hide it, here by click and drag, I move it out and then I close it. So if I want to show select in the toolbar, I right click, then in show or hide tabs, then I look for select, I scroll down, then I check select, then it will be shown in the Rhino toolbar. As you can see, it is added to the toolbar, and if you wanted to customize the arrangement, by click and drag you can change the place to customize the order. Well done. The next item is sidebar. Let me show it to you, the panel of sidebar. As you can see, sidebar is regarded as one of the most useful panels, which is not fixed. But what does it mean? It is not fixed. For example, if I'm using the standard tools of the toolbar, the given tools are these. But if I open the curve tools, the related tools in the sidebar will be shown. So the tools in the sidebar are dependent to your selected toolbar. As you can see, as I choose one of them or each of them, the sidebar tools changes too, that it should be shown always. At the right side of the screen, as you can see, we got a panel which got some specific tabs. As you can see here, if I dissociate the rhinoceros tab or panel, then we will have it in a dockable window in which we got some tabs, as you can see. But here there are some tabs that I recommend. I recommend them since they are practical, or properties, which are the features related to your selected object, and then the layers. It offers us the layout. I do not recommend rendering, so we can remove it from the rhinoceros panel or the dockable window, as well as the libraries by click and drag and then close. Materials is useful too, and the help. Actually, help could be helpful when you are online. For example, when you are sketching a line, it will give you some explanations, some guidance about the selected command or tool and how we can work with it. All in all, I suggest to have these 4 dockable windows in Rhinoceros panel, but just in case if we needed properties and it wasn't shown there, how do we can return it? How do we can add or remove the tabs to the Rhinoceros panel here at the right side of the screen? It's so simple. I click on settings, and then here in these items, as you can see, we got access to the tabs. Then we can choose the desired one that we wanted to be shown there. For example, property. I click on it to show it in the tabs, and then it will be added. And if you wanted to modify the arrangement by click and drag by this way, we can change the place. So these 3 were the most important panels in Rhino, which are very practical and the most functional panels, and you should have always get access to these. But let's check it out if just in case we didn't have access to these, how do we can find access to these panels or just add them? So if you agree, let us close them by click and drag and then cancel. Then we will have the full screen view, and then we're gonna check it out and tell you how do we can get access to them. First of all, if we want to show the toolbar, if we want to show or display the toolbars, I open tools, as you can see, step by step. Then I open toolbar layout. Then here in Rhino options, in toolbar layout, as you can see, I choose default. Actually in files it enlisted all of the installed plugins in Rhino. But if you want to get access to your standard toolbars, you should click on default. And then in toolbars, for finding the standard tool group, I scroll down, and then right here, as you can see, standard toolbar group, which got 15 tabs. I check it, and then after clicking on OK, it will be displayed on the scene. But right now I'm gonna teach you how we can move the panels and how to position them at their main places. So please watch this part carefully. First of all, if we want to move all of the tabs or the whole panel, we should use the blue part at the right corner of the panel, and then by clicking and dragging, we can move them entirely. By this way, we can position them at a specific place, and they will be placed independently there by this way. And for disconnecting them, when the icon of the arrows were laid, by click and drag, I can move them and disconnect them, or I can drag them from the blue part, and then when it was highlighted, I can release it and then it will be placed. So we can either use the blue part for moving them by click and drag, then we can move all of the tabs entirely together. But while moving them, if we hold the cursor of the mouse at only one of these tabs, like display, then I can separate this tab, display tab, the toolbar, and then move it individually. Then we can move it independently to the toolbar. It is not grouped anymore. And then we can position it at a specific place in the scene independently, which is not considered helpful actually. But how do we can group it again? How do we can associate it to the toolbar? Here I can use click and drag. I click on display and then I place it on the toolbar, and then it will be placed in the toolbar and it is no more independent. And then I can separate it again by click and drag and move. Then by clicking on the blue part and then drag it, I can position it at a specific place independently. Then when it was highlighted, you can release it and it will be fixed. And for returning to the toolbar, you can click on display and then drag it to place it in the toolbar. Then from the blue part, click and drag and then place them at a fixed position. Well done. The next panel is sidebar as you are concerned. If we want to display it, again in tools menu, toolbar layout. This time I open toolbars menu, and then in size and styles, here in visibility, I check sidebar visible. Then I make it visible in the scene. Okay. But note that the panels which are composed by only one tab, we got no limitness for moving them and clicking and drag. You can either choose to click on the names or on the blue parts. But if we add one more tab to this sidebar panel, we should choose, click on the blue part for moving it. Click and drag and then release to place it at the side. And note that in the sidebar tool, we should have at least 2 columns of tools. But if I minimize it, check this out. So just maximize the size or just click and drag it in order to get access at least 2 columns of tools. By this way, as you can see in the side toolbar. But about the panel that we had at the right side of the screen or scene, we're going to have a review about the tabs in which we had access to. Do you remember? Could you please name them? I know I can't hear you, but I just want you to repeat them for yourself. This is a kind of self-assessment for you. So I want you to tell the items there, which were the 4 tabs in the right side of the panel. First of all, yes, properties, and the second, layers. And so if I want to learn them from first, properties, layers, materials, and help. But how do we can return them? It was a very simple process. I open a standard tab in toolbar. Here as you can see, we got layers in surface tools and properties under surface tools. And here if I show the object properties, it carries other tabs like layers, materials and help as you can see. So by showing only properties we can get access to the other tabs too. Or if I show layers, they will be shown up together, not separately. Then here by clicking on the blue part and dragging you can move it. But if you click and drag on the names and the icons, you can separate them from the list. And for bring it back, click and drag and then release. Well done. Then I position it at the right side of the scene. Well done. If I want to give you another recommendation or suggestion about this panel, is that after being professional and skilled at Rhino, you'll no longer need to use help. But to me, I prefer to remove it from the list. But if you're a beginner, you can keep it there and read the help descriptions. But if you want to remove help, I recommend you to add display instead, since display tab could be helpful, but if you need help you can keep it no matter. And another point is that you can choose to hide or show this panel by pressing F3. As you can see, F3 is considered as a shortcut for displaying rhinoceros panel. Don't forget that in some of the keyboards you have to hold down Fn too. So if you can find Fn at your keyboard, hold down Fn bottom, then press F3 in order to display the rhinoceros panel. But let us get familiar more with the interface of the Rhino and the environment. Here as you can see at the bottom we got 4 tabs which are called the viewports tabs. Here we got the viewports of perspective, top, front and right. But what are the function of these viewports tabs? For example, here as you can see we got the viewport of perspective, then we got top, front and right. So 4 viewports are available here in the scene, and each of these are called a viewport. That the 4 tabs at the bottom are the viewports that we are watching them at the scene. Suppose that you are at the perspective viewport. Let me sketch something as an example, like a pyramid or pyramid. I just wanna give you an example, so don't matter if you're not sketching this. I switch to top, then front, right. So by this way we can toggle between the viewports, but I will talk about the function viewports. But here you may question that how do we can get access to these tabs if they weren't visible. So just in case, if these 4 viewports were not visible at the bottom, you can type it at the command line. As you can see, viewport tabs, then in the list you can click on viewport tabs. But right now the viewport tabs are already visible, but let me hide them, then we're gonna show them again. So in command line I search for viewport tabs as you can see, and then I can show them on the scene. Then they will be visible. So by using the command line and then type your command, you can choose to hide the viewport tabs and even show them in the scene. But here there is a point that you should know. Here if I right click on each of these viewport tabs, here there is an item or option named combined model tab. If I click on it, as you can see they are hidden and they are combined. So just in case if you have chosen combined model tab by mistake or accidentally or whatever, then if you search for viewports tab in the command line, if I click on show, they are not visible yet as you can see, because they are combined with each other, they are integrated. But how do we can fix it? Again right click and then I uncheck combined model tab. Then we can get access to the 4 main viewport tabs. So don't forget this technique. Anyway, let's talk about these items and near, point, mid and so on. Could you guess what are these? Actually the names are similar to the snaps. And near, point, mid, cen or center, intersection. These are the rhino snaps. And just in case if they weren't visible at the scene, how do we can bring them back or show them? At the bottom part of the scene we got O snap or object snap. I click on it to make the object snaps visible. Then by clicking and dragging, I position it wherever I want it. And as you can see, you can enable it or disable it, as you can see, if you didn't want to use them for a while. And the other items are filters. Since we usually have an a tool in all of the softwares for filtering our selections. For example, we can filter to choose only the lines, only the masses, only the lights. If I click on filter or selection filter, it will be visible. Then we can choose to filter points. For example, if we want to select only points, since I only want to select the points. Actually, we do not usually position the panel of the filter on the scene because it is not frequently used and it occupies any space. But just in case if you were eager to display it on your scene, you can position it somewhere. That I do not agree, since it is not frequently used and it doesn't deserve to be visible on the scene all the time. So we can enable it wherever it was needed. And the point is sometimes you want to move some of the panels by clicking and dragging, but you might not manage to move it from its place. At this condition we right click. For example, I right click on this line as you can see on the scene. Here if I right click, here we got an option named lock docked windows, which locks the panels or the dockable windows or the windows which are docked at the scene. If I click on lock docked windows, check this out. As you can see, I'm not allowed to them by clicking and dragging. I can just modify the size of the dockable windows, extend them or minimize them. So just in case if you wanted to fix it, just right click at an empty space, then uncheck lock docked windows. Then it enables you to move the dockable windows. After locking them, the boundary lines will be hidden. Check this out, if I lock them, the boundary lines between the dockable windows will be hidden, but if I unlock them, you can see the boundary lines by this way. Sometimes you may have your dockable windows unorganized at the scene. Suppose that you have deleted some of the tools by mistake. So just if you were encountered with such a problem, you can reset your dockable windows. Here on the command line, if I type reset, let's check it out. We got toolbar reset, as you can see. If I click on it, resetting the toolbar, then in the message I click on OK, again OK. As you can see, the toolbar is reset. Then we should close the Rhino and then launch it again. So it takes some time to reset the toolbars, but then we can get access to the default tools in the toolbars. Then you can get access to the deleted tabs like Inkscape, as you can see, which is an install plugin. I had deleted it before, but after resetting the toolbar, it has returned. But the changes in the Rhino series dockable window are kept. Well done, let us go on getting familiar with the interface of Rhino and the work environment. So watch this part patiently, since these topics are important. Later I will assign a time for you in order to work with these items. But an interesting thing in Rhino is that when we hold the cursor of the mouse in most of the tools, as you can see, if we click on the left bottom of the mouse, it saves, but if we press the right bottom of the mouse, it exports the selected objects. For example, the light. Right click, hide objects. Left click, right click, show. Check this example, just watch it. It is not necessary to learn how to sketch these. The main point is the differences between the right click and the left click. I select the object, then I left click, left mouse, it hides the object. But if I press the right bottom of the mouse, it shows the object. Let me give you another example. For example, open, as you can see, you can open by using the left bottom of the mouse, and you can import by using the right bottom of the mouse. Or other examples, save, as I told you before. Check out the icons, save and export selected objects. Most of the tools offer two commands by using the left and right bottom of the mouses, like trim and untrim, or split and split surface by ISO curve. But some of them got only single capabilities, like this, circle center radius. But most of the tools give us two different kinds of commands by using the left and right buttons of the mouse. And as you know, this occupies less space because instead of using two icons, for example for trim and untrim, you can get access to each of these commands by left and right click. So this have organized the scene. And at the bottom of the icons of these tools, as you can see with these commands, there are some arrows or some handles that you may know what are these or what these are. These are some drop-down lists which give you the subgroups or the related commands or tools, or for example the commands which are related to showing and hiding, or like to say we can get access to the different commands for sketching a circle as you can see in the scene. But assume that I'm sketching different types of circles in the scene, and I don't want to waste my time in opening the list and then specifying the command. For example, circle diameter, and then again opening the list, circle diameter. Actually, we can temporarily reduce the subcategories of each of these commands or tools that we got them here. Here, if I open the list or the subcategories, and then if I click and drag on the gray part of the panel or the window, then I can fix it on the scene. For example, rectangles. I open it, then by clicking and dragging from the gray part, I position it somewhere else. Suppose that in your project you are sketching multiple circles or rectangles and you are frequently using these tools, so you need to make them accessible. You can fix them and then use them and then close them. For example, for having different kinds of lines, I open the list of the line commands, then the gray part, click and drag, and then I move it somewhere else to position it in the proper position. Then I can move the project forward. And as you know, you can move it by clicking and dragging. But let us have a review about the moving of these dockable windows. But this time I want to do it more accurately. So let us check it out. As I was saying about the movement of the dockable windows, that you got two approaches for moving the dockable windows from the blue part, for example. Then you can dock the window independently, which is not frequently used or common between the users. And about the another approach for moving the dockable window is to click on the name of the dockable window. Then if you click on it, it can be included to another dockable window. I mean, we can include it into another panel. For example, if I want to add line as one of my standard toolbar tabs, I click on the name and then I drag it, I release it on the standard toolbar. Check this out, again I can bring it back. So we use the blue part for docking the window independently, but we use the name click and drag for including it into another panel or toolbar. By this way, let me bring it back. So don't forget these. Let me give you another example of visibility. I position it here to use it, for example, and then I can close it. But as far as you are concerned, the functional of the pressing the roll of the mouse, pressing down the roll of the mouse, usually pans the screen. We use the wheel of the mouse or the middle click to pan. Check this out. But in Rhino, when we press down the wheel of the mouse or the middle click, a useful panel will show up that we call it pop up, as you can see. Let me fix it. As you can see, the name is pop up. But as I mentioned before, in most of the softwares, when you press down the wheel of the mouse or the scroll wheel, it enables us to pan. But here in Rhino, by pressing down the scroll wheel, we can get access to the pop up. But just in case, if after pressing down the scroll wheel, the pop up weren't showed up on the scene, what should we do to appear it? But some of you may say that, some of you may prefer to use the wheel scroll to pan the scene, pan the screen. It is okay, but I do not recommend you this. I will explain the solution, the approach, so you can choose your own way. So let us check the pop-up settings out. As I mentioned before, as if pop-up didn't appear after pressing the wheel of the mouse, what should we do? Or what should we do if we want to pan by using the scroll wheel? Here in toolbar layout, in Rhino options, So since it is related to the mouse, I open mouse settings in middle mouse button or the scroll wheel button. If you want to get access to the panel of pop-up, after pressing down the middle mouse button, which is my recommendation, you can choose pop-up this toolbar. You should choose default.pop-up. However, here we got the list with too many objects or items or panels that you can get access to them by pressing the middle mouse button. But if you wanted to pan by using the middle mouse button, check manipulate view actually, and then pan, okay. Then you can use the middle mouse button for pan this screen and you won't get access to the pop-up panel. That I do not recommend this. Don't forget it. Since pop-up panel is more functional. Uncheck, okay. Then if I press down the middle mouse button, I can get access to the pop-up panel. But what is the basic purpose of pop-up? As you can see in pop-up panel, the most frequent tools, the tools which are the most frequently used are gathered here, so we can get access to them easily. So at any time, at any place, we can just press down the middle mouse button and you are even allowed to customize your pop-up in order to add your desired commands and remove the unused commands. But how do we can add or remove tools from the pop-up panel or dockable window? First of all, you should open your pop-up and then fix it. I press the middle button, then I click on the gray part, then it will be fixed as you can see. But how can I customize it, remove or add tools or commands from it? We usually do not keep save since we can use Ctrl S as a shortcut, which is more easier. So I hold down Shift for removing it, and then I drag it to delete it. After releasing it, it will be deleted. For example, or the visibility, which are not commonly used or frequently used while moving forward the project, since they got simple shortcuts, Ctrl L for lock and Ctrl H for hide. So by using Ctrl plus L and H, we can get access to these tools. So I delete them from the pop-up. But what about explode? You are probably familiar with this from CAD. But I will tell you the similarities between CAD and the Rhino. Ctrl plus X, I delete it. Join is not frequently used. Also properties, we do not need it, but to extent, I delete it as well. We can use the shortcut instead. But what about these two remaining tools or commands, which are render preview viewports and the another one? In the continuation, I wanna talk about the other commands that you need to add them to your pop-up, which is my suggestion that you can add them to your pop-up if you want it, but if you were reluctant to this, you can customize your pop-up yourself. After being master in Rhino, you can consider your most frequently used tools and then add them to your pop-up. But for now, let's talk about my suggestion for the added tools in the pop-up. Here in standard and the tools of zoom, my first suggestion is zoom selected. I will talk about the functions and the purposes of these tools later. Right now I just want to tell you this is my first suggestion to add it to your pop-up, and later we will get familiar with them. But for adding it, I hold down Ctrl and then I place it at the pop-up, then it will be copied. So my first suggestion was zoom selected. The next one is extrude curve. Here I can open these in the sidebar. Then here in extrude close planar curve, I hold down Ctrl, I make a copy and then I place it in pop-up to add it to my pop-up panel or dockable window. What is next? I open the visibility, isolate objects, I hold down Ctrl, then click and drag, release in the pop-up dockable window. Well done. From the graphical tools, we got two of them, shaded viewports for example. Let me open this, open the list of the graphical tools. Here in ghosted viewport, I hold down Ctrl to make a copy and then release it in pop-up. Then I place it next to the another one. Very well. In lines, the second one, curve interpolate points, hold down Ctrl, click and drag, release to add the to my pop-up. Then in select last created objects, click, drag while holding down Control and then release. And then in Array Tools, Polar Array, hold down Control, click and drag and then release for adding the tool to the pop-up dockable window. Then we can modify the form of the pop-up dockable window, for example. I wanna modify the scale. As we got 9 tools, we can have three rows and columns by this way. I close it, then I show it. Check this out by pressing the middle mouse button. Then if you wanted to modify it, first fix it. Let me modify the scale by this way. Close. If I show it again, the changes are saved. Then again I fix it. I modify the arrangement. After setting it, I close it. Then the changes will be saved. As you can see. Very well, guys, I want you to practice the given lessons about the interface. You don't have to work on lines or whatever. So just I want you to come up with me step by step in the process of learning, because today's lessons got a key rule in learning how to work with Rhino, just like the alphabet letters when you want to start learning a new language. So watch this part carefully and patiently, and never try to move the video tutorials forward, since you may skip some of the most important parts, and later you may be encountered with some challenges in your learning process, since most of the lessons are related to each other. Some of them are regarded as the prerequisites, just like the first session that you need to know how to get access to the tools, and I consider the first session of Rhino as the alphabet of Rhino. So please do not rush. Watch all of the video tutorials till the end patiently. Don't forget to take notes. And you are not allowed to start the next session unless you have practiced the previous session. So guys, see you in the next session.